I'm here with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, former Deputy Assistant to President Trump. Dr. Gorka, thank you for joining us today on One America News.
My pleasure.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your remarks here today at the Values Voters Summit, talking about this movement that you spoke about and the efforts that you and many of your colleagues have on the ground across the United States. Talk to me about what you are trying to do ahead of the 2018 midterm elections.
Right, so I took a position as chief strategist for the Make America Great Again coalition. It's a new super PAC, and it's not for any special interest group. This isn't for industry or big pharma. This is for the forgotten men and women who on November the 8th chose an outsider like Donald Trump to shake up the establishment and to bring real representative government back to D.C. So we're going to campaign, we're going to coordinate with Steve Bannon, with his PAC, and we're going to campaign for any candidate who wishes to drain the swamp, support the president's agenda, and break the stranglehold of business as usual politics in D.C.
Talk to me about how broad you are looking to make these efforts. You talked about today what appeared to be empowering the Republican Party to grow in this direction. Is this something that you see not only in 2018, but will be something you're looking towards in 2020, 2022, and 2024?
I think it's the future of the republic. So, the left has, its own ideological stance, but the right, in terms of the establishment, has betrayed the founding principles of the republic. Look at the last eight months. What has the GOP establishment in this city done for the president? Nothing. Whether it's Obamacare with its tax reform, the president by himself has had to carry the banner of the November the 8th principles and platform. So yes, this is as broad as you can get it. But to quote Steve Bannon from CPAC last year, if you think that the establishment is going to give back your nation to you without a fight, you are sorely mistaken. So that's why it's important for everybody. Don't think that you're in California and it's always going to be a Democrat state. No, everything has changed. The rule book has been rewritten on November the 8th with what the president managed to do. So everybody has a role to play to make America great again.
Briefly talk to me about the job that was done in Alabama in the primary race. Luther Strange, Judge Roy Moore, big victory there for your team and the people who are on the ground working to ensure that he won that primary election. He's now headed against Doug Jones in December. He will be in that general election. Talk to me about the efforts now, how you shift the focus from a primary-based election, running up against a more establishment candidate, to the whole other party, looking at the Democrats and how you're going to face them.
The same principles apply. So the amazing thing about Judge Moore's victory is how money not only became irrelevant, money became a liability. Mitch McConnell, his leadership PAC, the swamp dwellers' money, more than $30 million, let's just think about this, more than $30 million spent in Alabama, and Luther Strange lost. Judge Moore spent less than $3 million. How did he win? Because the people understood it's about the substance and the integrity of the man, and it's about going house to house, door to door. It's not about vile attack ads. So we're going to use the same principles, person to person, and it's not going to be about money. It's going to be about the movement taking back the nation.
Shifting very quickly to President Trump, you said earlier today he wants to win the war with our enemies. Talk to me about what you feel is the biggest threat to the American people around the globe right now.
Well, that's a little bit complicated. So I came into the administration to do counterterrorism, to focus on groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the Sunni jihadist threat. That remains, but under the leadership of Secretary Mattis and the President, we're crushing that threat. So that's the 5-meter target. It will be dealt with in short order. The 10-meter target is Shia jihadism. That means Iran, and that's why we have to stop Iran acquiring nuclear weapons, because that's a state that sponsors terrorism, and they must not be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons, and that's why I'm very glad the President decertified the Iran deal. But the biggest threat, and this is something Steve Bannon opened my eyes to in our time in the White House, the long-range threat to America is China. China is already at war with us economically. If you don't understand the connections between manufacturing jobs going to Asia and opioid abuse here in America, you don't understand economic warfare. And lastly, China is going to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the communist takeover in 1949 in just a few years' time. They wish to assert hegemonic influence in the world, globally, economically, and economically. We have to educate Americans to understand the threat that is China.
Looking back to the Iran negotiations and the Trump administration trying to work through this deal and see where it makes sense to pressure Tehran. Talk to me about the actions the president took this week. Did you feel they were enough? And moving forward, what does the president need to do to ensure the safety of Israel? Obviously, the closest threat in terms of our allies in the region.
This will have to be my last answer. I recommended, and I sent this message to the president, that we must decertify, which happened, and at the same time he has to exercise the mandate provided him by the Sanctions Act that he signed in August to designate the Iranian Republican Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. He went 90% of the way there yesterday. There's new sanctions being imposed on the IRGC, but this is a terrorist organization. This nation has killed scores of American servicemen and women. So what I hope to see happen next is the full withdrawal eventually of America from the JCPOA and a full designation of the IRGC and all its affiliates as a terrorist organization.
Dr. Gorka, thank you so much for your time. There you have it. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, back to you in the studio.